we believe that there are three aspects of smart and responsible energy management. One is on the generation part of it. How do you generate energy? The second is on the distribution part of it. How do you distribute energy? And how do you consume energy, both at the retail, industrial, and at every level? All these three inclusive really try to bring a 360 perspective of what I believe could be one approach to a smart and responsible energy management. But I do believe that we have to address all the three verticals very clearly and very deeply on the generation, distribution, and consumption. Smart management, I share my views that there's been a lot of talk about distribution, about new technologies, but sometimes in that entire process of doing that, we tend to forget how do we generate energy. I know there are various forms of alternate forms, and you can straight away jump and say that we want to do that in another way, but it's very difficult for any nation or any industry to not utilize the natural resources they have available in their quest for energy security. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about certain clean technologies that are available even in the fossil fuel generation of energy, which I believe could further the cause of compliance and reductions of SOx and NOx. And on top of all this generation, distribution, and consumption, there has to be an air cover, what we call the compliance, because eventually there will be a lot of policy matters from different parts of the world on compliance. And this is an upper deck software system that can sit on top of the three aspects of generation, distribution, and consumption. If you look at the way we have the greenhouse emissions, I'm not going into the details of the smaller portion, but almost like 54% of what we have, the root cause of greenhouse emissions come out of industries and come out of the very fact that we are generating energy. So far, whenever you have fired coal into a boiler, it's been a blind firing of coal. There is no on-time, real-time basis of measuring coal. You'll be surprised to note that industry-wise, you get a measurement from the sampling system, which is 5 hours old or 1 day late, and you're firing coal into the boiler, and you're doing combustion control. Now there are some new technologies available in the market that allow you to have a real-time online measurement of coal right down to the elements as they are being fired on the conveyor belt into the boiler. And these are based on neutron analysis. So you're no longer blind. You know exactly what is the percentage of every element that is going inside the boiler. What it does is a better combustion. What it does is reduction of SOx, NOx, longer boiler life, and lesser emissions. That's the first measurement. The second one is, again, imagine a combustion process inside. I mean, you don't see anything going inside. Everything is inferred. But now there are laser technologies available, which is a matrix of laser beams inside the boiler where the combustion is happening. And you can measure and you can see the inside of the combustion process. Again, leading to ensuring that the combustion is complete, just like we have in the cars, because now when the unburned hydrocarbons coming out is emission. So you burn everything. This allows you to measure, see what's going on inside, and ensure that the CO2 emissions, the SO2 emissions are dropping below, because now you are the eye inside the combustion chamber through a laser beam. These are now being begun to be used all over the world, but we're still about a couple of years from that point where such technologies are going to be welcomed by the industry, and that's my point I'm trying to make it. There are technologies, but unfortunately the industry is not really going into the details of it, and we're talking about an overall changing the whole paradigm, but not utilizing a whole lot of stuff that's available today. We go very quickly to the other aspect, which is the distribution and consumption and the concept of smart grids that everyone's talking about today. This is the legacy grid as we know today. You know, you have generation, you've got distribution, you've got retail, you've got consumer. All of it is what we call the legacy grid. And this is what the world is looking at it today. It's a passive, one-way grid system. Not too much communication is happening between the generation, distribution. It's active, but it's not a two-way communication. This is a legacy grid as of now. What we see tomorrow is the smart grids, which is the future. The smart grid does is, it's a two-way traffic. Every device is now an IP address, Internet Protocol address. It's an active device, whether it is down at the home or the industry or in a municipal corporation. You have smart meters, and it allows two-way traffic, which means not only can you buy power from the grid, but you'll be able to sell back into the grid when you have surplus power. And I'm talking even when you have a little bit of a solar panel on top of your house, or a car, which is electric car. You charge it up right now and you plan to go out in the evening, but tomorrow you decide not to go out. You can plug the car back into the grid and give it a command, and the grid can draw back the power from your car into the system for usage to someone else. So we are optimizing the energy usage through the smart grids. As you can see, everything is an IP network now. So all devices across every platform is now an IP address. Then there are additional challenges. As you can see, we have renewable generation, so we're going to be looking at solar panels, we're going to be looking at wind energy, geothermal, nuclear. We have a change in pattern of consumption. I just showed a slide on the car that you can have surplus energy from the car going back into the grid tomorrow because it's not being used, and you're not having losses just because it's standing there. So these are additional challenges. And any inclusive process will include all of these challenges in the concept of managing smartly and responsibly the energy management. And at the end of the day, what we foresee is that there would be a smart home energy controller sitting right inside the home. And every input, every device, whether it's your handheld BlackBerry or an iPhone or a laptop or all kinds of electrical appliances, including refrigerators, microwave ovens, everything is going to be plugged in there. And the smart energy controller is also internet activated. And it will directly take the input of the weather forecast. And I hope the weatherman is correct at that point, because it can take the input from the internet and turn your various devices, the HVAC systems or the heating, ventilating, air conditioning or other things in your home and offices and buildings and industry into various modes that you set up. Each of these devices might have an infrared camera that can determine within your house as to how many people are moving around and actually switch most of the air blowing into a certain area where there are more people than lesser people. I mean, these are almost at the point of being commercialized, these products I'm talking about. You know, they are not just something very futuristic. We're talking about more than 80% of the product we're talking is already in place. It's just that it's not become so commercial at this point, and you know, there is a debate whether how to do that. So what do you see today? The smart grid is like an internet. If you look at the last column, I think the figures were 1.4 trillion. There would be 1.4 trillion IPs, Internet Protocol, around the world. And if each of these have 20 devices inside, we're looking at some 40 trillion IPs in the smart grid of the future. That's the enormity of this grid we are talking about, which can be managed through technology that is already available or will be developed for the last mile. The last aspect is risk governance and compliance. A package that sits on top of it. It has a real-time basis policies that will be issued to it based upon wherever country it is, and making sure that you're managing your risk of not complying with the regulations of that particular community or country. That is what we call the risk governance and compliance deck, which is sitting on top of the other technologies. So I would like to close it with this fact that 5 words, an inclusive policy means you have to look at energy generation, energy distribution, energy consumption, and compliance with regulations. And I believe that a policy which is perceived as correct and pragmatic using technology is the one that will actually bring board a lot of people on the ship that we are trying to move on, as opposed to just saying that let's jump to one technology. Thanks a lot.